Hi, Mr. Cleary. So I'm James Blair with the Midwest Tennessee Clean Fuels Coalition. Mr. Cleary, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Noah Cleary with the Tennessee Valley Authority. My role is the project manager of e-mobility, which we're kind of coining as a term for electrification of our internal fleet. So I work with our fleet services department in our supply chain group.
Amazing. Okay, so we are just going to talk a little bit about TVA's electrification plan they recently came out with for up until 2030. And so these are going to be a few questions pertaining to that. So our first question is, if you could just briefly summarize TVA's electrification plans for its passenger cars and its light duty trucks.
Yes, absolutely. So last August, our CEO, Jeff Lyash, announced that TVA would be transitioning 100% of our light duty fleet and 50% of our medium duty fleet to electric by 2030. And then additionally, starting in 2025, 100% of our light duty purchases, mainly in our sedan and SUV side, will be electric. So when we use the word transition, we're really working to transition the vehicle that are at the end of their life cycle so that we're not really going out and replacing a brand new vehicle with an electric sedan, something like that. So in total, at the end of this, we're looking at transitioning about 1,200 vehicles from gasoline to electric by 2030.
Amazing. That's fantastic. So what were the driving factors or influences that led to the announcement of this plan?
So this is something TVA has been looking at and considering for a few years, but previously the technology for the vehicles wasn't widely available for a large transition that we need. But now we're starting to see, electric trucks coming available for purchase and a wider range of sedans and SUVs available for purchase. And then additionally, the concept of electrification really lines up well with TVA's three E's, so energy, environment, and economic development. These vehicles run on the energy we produce. They're significantly better for the environment. And we have a large opportunity for economic development within the Tennessee Valley by encouraging auto manufacturers as well as electric vehicle supply equipment producers to really come and start doing business in the Tennessee Valley. So it really lines up well with our mission to give back and to really help the Valley.
Amazing. What are the greatest benefits that are expected to come from this plan? And are there any numbers attached to those expectations?
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest benefits comes from the CO2 reduction in the electric vehicle transition. So vehicles are the largest contributor of CO2, really, just globally. And TVA wants to really set an example for other businesses as well as individuals to see the environmental benefits from electrification. So another major benefit is the reduction of gasoline consumption as well. So as gas prices continue to rise and for people to really feel impacts, this is something that TVA can benefit from as well as, if you or I were to go purchase an electric vehicle that we would see an immediate benefit from as well. So the general consensus we use is that there's an average annual savings of about $1,000 per year combined for the fuel and maintenance cost. And so obviously, as gas prices continue to increase, the savings increase as well. So really, those are the two biggest, initial economic benefits that TVA can see, as well as an individual can see by transitioning to an electric vehicle.
Awesome. And what are the greatest challenges that TVA foresees in bringing this plan to fruition?
So I do think there are a few that we could speak of. The obvious challenge is really just the global supply chain challenges that we're facing. Vehicles, especially electric vehicles, are just taking a very long time from order to delivery. This is something that you can go see if you go to your local dealership. Their lots are virtually empty. So from the time we're ordering a vehicle, it can be 300 days from the time we actually receive it. We're hoping to see an improvement over the next 6, 12 months, but really it's something that's hard to predict overall for us. Another challenge that we're working to overcome is the installation of electric vehicle chargers. So our territory is very large and very spread out. So we're working hard to develop and implement a robust charging network that really allows us to get to where we need to go while we're at any of our sites. We want to be able to charge to be able to get to our next destination we have. And so really, as we work to develop those plans, we're thinking about where do we need to have chargers? How many do we need to have? How many fast chargers do we need? And where do we need to put those? So these are questions, really TVA is working to, but these are challenges that other businesses are really working to overcome as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And so combining the a number of points you've already made with that electrification, the infrastructure that you'll be obviously is going to be a challenge, and obviously TVA will be implementing as a result. And the fact that you are working in the valley and that these all will have impacts on citizens and stakeholders in the valley. What is the kind of how do you see this plan positively impacting citizens, positively impacting business, and the stakeholders within the valley that TVA is obviously always part of?
Right. So we really have two different groups that are working on some of this. So my group is really focused on the internal transition of our fleet. We also have another group that's working on really some external facing EV initiatives. That's our innovation and research group. And they're working to remove, four key market barriers that we see related to electric vehicles. So first is really charging infrastructure availability. So as I mentioned, we're working to put this infrastructure internally. We have a group that's working with our local power companies externally to install a network of DC fast chargers along the highway. Really, that's working to remove range anxiety from the public, to create a network to where, as a consumer, you can get to where you need to go without having, fear that you're not going to be able to make it there. And so we're working on that directly with our local power companies to help, incentivize them to install. We're helping to fund some of this as well. So that's really a big piece of that. I think a second thing would be EV availability and offerings. There have been some recent announcements about some large manufacturers coming into the valley to start doing business. So TVA is working to partner with both automakers and fleets to see, what can we bring, what kind of availability and offerings can we bring within the valley specifically? How can we work with fleets to help transition some of their fleets to electric? Just as a consultation kind of service, and then just really making a wide range of EVs available. A third market barrier we're working on is innovative and supportive policies. So we do work with the lawmakers, both at the federal and state level, to remove, utility policies or pricing barriers that might be there, and then to help craft policies and pricing that encourage investments and enable a market for EVs to be sustainable long term. And then finally, really just consumer awareness is helping consumers make sound decisions, helping to educate and inform while, both promoting TVA, the LPC brands that we have. So the goal here is to really have 200,000 plus EVs in the Tennessee Valley by 2028, to see $200 million in consumer fuel savings per year. So we're using that, average of $1,000 savings for maintenance and fuel savings, and then 120 million per year reinvest into the local economy. And then finally, just really the metric tons of CO2 that we're reducing with this. So we're predicting almost 1 million metric tons of CO2 saved per year. So as I talk about this and as I think about just the electric vehicle transition for both TVA and in the Valley, it really lines up very strongly with TVA's mission to make life better for the people of the Valley. And then a key point here is that it helps with economic development as well, as we're working to attract these major manufacturers for both, the car, Ford, Volkswagen, things like that, as well as the electric vehicle supply equipment. We have some companies that are coming into the Valley as well to bring jobs and to invest in the people as well. So, all of these things just really line up with TVA's mission of service.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a very overarching summary, and I really appreciate it. Jumping to some kind of supplementary questions. Concerning the heavy duty trucks, does TVA have insight into when cost-effective EV models will be viable in that field?
So that's a very good question. We're starting to see some pilot programs, some startup companies develop, the technology for heavy duty EV trucks. I think the challenge here is to meet the range needs that these vehicles will need to have while still producing the power that these heavier trucks need for their job. In terms of the timeline, we really don't have any good insight on when those will be available on a mass basis, but that's something we're staying very close to as industry news and products that we can test for our internal use cases. However, as rapidly as technology is advancing and as much focus is being put on the electric vehicle market, we're expecting to see some models, over the next 2 years or so come available on a larger basis. We've seen a big shift in the auto industry over the past few years to focus on electric vehicles, which is encouraging. And at this point, it really feels like it's a race for some of these big manufacturers to see who can be the first to produce these heavy vehicles. And then from a cost-effective basis, um, it's a general consensus that electric vehicles do cost a little bit more than a gasoline vehicle. So we don't have a good idea what these will cost yet. But again, as we see policies from a federal level, a state level to help, reduce costs, tax incentives, things like that, we're hoping that, the cost-effective piece will follow suit shortly after they're available.
Amazing. And kind of along those lines, both heavy duty and on the light duty planes, is TVA considering or implementing plans to use other kinds of alternative fuels as a kind of transition away from gas in other use cases, whether that be trucks, cars, or just the more like your utility vehicles, not utility vehicles, but rather utility use cases for particular types of implements?
Um, so I think the heaviest focus for us right now is on just electric vehicle. We haven't really explored alternative fuels. We've had some other agencies discuss hydrogen powered things like that. For TVA specifically, we are looking at, just pure electric vehicles, the battery electric vehicles. Um, while we're in this transition phase and while we're developing this network of chargers, we are utilizing some plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that utilize, both the electric for a certain amount of range and then can transition over to gasoline, as that electric runs out. I think in the future, though, we will steer away from the plug-in hybrids and really focus on the battery electric side.
Amazing. That is all the questions I have for you, Mr. Cleary. I really do appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our discussion before we end?
Um, not that I can think of. I think we've kind of gone over, how this lines up with TVA's mission. I think an interesting thing that's kind of spurred from our electrification plans is really looking at how can we apply this to other things as well. So not necessarily just vehicles, but warehouse equipment such as forklifts, man lifts, things like that. So it's really opening up an opportunity for us to look across our fleet of vehicles, our fleet of, just equipment that support our needs on a day-to-day basis to look for opportunities to electrify those as well. So, it's an exciting time to be in this industry. I'm excited to work for TVA, a company whose leadership is really focused on, internal and externally focused on encouraging electrification. And it's exciting to see. I'm anticipating a larger focus from other industries. Our peers have started to announce their electrification plans as well. So excited to be part of this.